Hi, this is Greg Gate and Bob Eckman with Merchanier for another chat. Hello, everyone. This is Greg Aiden with Merchanier with my good friend Bob Eckman for another Merchanier chat. How are you doing today, Bob?
Doing great, Greg. We're looking forward to hearing some great things from our good friend Mukesh and yeah, love and life.
Good. Speaking of Mukesh, I want to introduce Mukesh Mauji, coming to us live from Northern California. Mukesh, I understand that you were once a chairman of AHOA back in 2006 and 7. Is that right?
That is correct. Good to be here.
Yeah. Why don't you start out by telling the audience a little bit about yourself and what it meant to be on top with AHOA, and give us a little bit of your background, please.
Well, I've been in the hospitality business since we came to this country. I was a 10-year-old kid delivering towels to rooms for my dad. So it's a family business. AHOA represented, a high point in my life as chairman. And the introduction of even the metal partnerships, platinum, gold, silver, bronze, that was during my era. I'm adamant about not taking sponsorships, but taking partnerships. Right. At the end of the day, it's very important that two companies work together. My background is technology. I live in Silicon Valley, Northern California, as you indicated, and I sit on the board of advisors of a number of startups ranging from sports related to pure technology related, cloud servers kind of stuff. I enjoy that kind of stuff quite a bit.
Well, this part of Merchanier created to really help the hospitality industry. And I'll let Bob chat about how did Merchanier start, Bob, and why were you so adamant Merchanier was right for hospitality?
Well, first of all, I would love to let Mukesh know how excited we are to have him as our new hospitality business consultant, and we'll be representing Merchanier to our clients, not only with AHOA, but in many other industries. So to start out, the parent company FTH has actually been around for about 6 or 7 years now. And they approached me when I was opening up an establishment in Nashville. And I adopted the Discount for Cash credit card processing platform with them. And our little honky tonk bar on Broadway in Nashville saved about $100,000 in our first year. So I was actually a client, is how this whole thing got started. Many years later, these same wonderful gentlemen who are now my partners, Butch and Clint Fair out of Chattanooga, Tennessee, approached me because they knew I had many contacts within the hospitality industry. I was semi-retired at the time and thought, what an amazing opportunity, because I was a client, and I knew that this concept was going to take off big time in the hospitality industry. So we developed a brand called Merchanier. I'm now the CEO of that brand, and I'm very excited to not only be a platinum member partner with AHOA, but love the opportunity to talk with new developers and operators and old friends within brands and that kind of thing. And we're starting to rock and roll. So it's exciting.
So share with us the connection and what does it mean to the people who own hotels, manage hotels, develop hotels? Why would someone want to get involved in Merchanier? And then after Bob, Mukesh, love for you to address the same question. What's your feeling about what Merchanier can do for the industry in general? Bob?
Well, simply it eliminates the 2.5% to 3% that owners and operators have been paying really forever. The last time that any one of our listeners today went to the gas station, they had more than likely an option to pay either by credit card, a certain amount per gallon, or go inside and pay less for cash. That's what this is in its simplest form. Merchanier becomes the processor. We end up paying the merchant banker, and we're merchant banker agnostic. And ultimately, then pay the owner the next day instead of 2 or 3 days later. And therefore the owner eliminates that 2.5 to 3%. And imagine what that means. I know we're going to talk about that a little bit later, Greg, but
Yeah.
you know, there's not too many things on a P&L that you can point to and say, let's eliminate that, you know, 2.5 to 3%.
Right. Especially you and our backgrounds relative to royalties and marketing and all IT fees. And so Mukesh, as a hotel icon, someone who's worked with hundreds and hundreds of hotel owners and developers and management companies, what's your perspective on Merchanier, and how do you see it fitting in and blending in? And then part two of the question, what is the main benefit for a hotel owner to get involved with Merchanier?
So, when Bob first approached me on this solution, right away I thought about my gas purchases. I have a gas card that gives me a 10 cent per gallon discount because I use that card because it's connected directly. So I understood the concept of saving money and then benefiting the ownership, because I talk to the gas station owner all the time, right? There's a bunch of them in this area. So I was brought into the system for a number of reasons. One, I'm going to bring up COVID for just a minute here, right?
Sure.
We are coming out of probably the worst economic environment in the history of the country, okay, the world. Hoteliers are devastated, and now everybody's looking at different alternatives of how to save money. Right? The good news with Merchanier is literally it's a hand in glove kind of fit. They don't have to change their computers and break walls and rewire things and that kind of stuff, right? I mean, this is literally a software install and they're up and running. But what it does is two things. Look, none of us are in business to have fun. We're in business at the end of the day to make money. Right? And these are, and you both know the profile of the Ahoa member, right? It's family-owned hotels, right? They got kids in college, whatever it is, right? It's how do I increase my revenue? How do I lower my costs? Therefore affecting the bottom line. And I think that this instantly, to Bob's point, Bob, I think you used the number 2.5 to 3%. If the guy's doing $1 million a year in processing, and the 2.5 to 3 applies, it's $25,000 that goes to his bottom line. That pays for a kid's education in a private college. So
Immediately.
I look at it from the perspective of this is actually a member benefit to better his business financials and therefore his personal life, right?
Yeah.
And so that's the vision that I see.
If you were a hotel owner today and you saw the opportunity, what would you do?
Therein lies the sales cycle, right? I think about this all the time, right? I think on the first approach, it's like, oh, what is this stuff? The non-belief kind of thing, right? You walk up to a hotel owner, and we've all been there, right? Oh, look, I got this system that can save you $25,000-$30,000, and he's going to say, yeah, whatever, right? But I think,
right,
what's the old, right? The tipping point, right? Before we get to the tipping point, we get some of the major players, a brand here and there, some management companies, and then they'll see the value in this, and it'll drive itself, right? And remember, hotel ownership is a herd mentality because we all come from one part of the country in India. We all know each other for generations. 10 guys do it, the next 10 are in line, and then 20 guys do it, the next 100 are in line, and that's what I'm looking for, is that herd mentality, right? But we have to face the reality of today, which is, we're talking to a bunch of people, we've got a conference call being set up, and doing the approach. But don't underestimate the value of the vision. The value of the vision is for him to better his family's life by saving money, right? Therefore, his financials at the business that he's dedicated to on a day-to-day basis.
Amen. Great point, Bob.
And, Greg, I was going to say, one of the first things that many of the owner operators and management companies that I talk to, one of the first things they say is, what is our guest going to say? And the reality is they don't really say a whole lot. They have a choice. They could pay with cash.
Right.
And the truth is not that many people pay with cash. This has been an amenity, or excuse me, an expense creep over time. Mukesh, what was it, 50-50 maybe, 15 years ago, cash to credit card. And,
Yep.
and now it's 95%. So it's been gradually, increasing in terms of the cost on the P&L. Because of the Dodd-Frank Act of 2010 and the Durbin Amendment, this became, it allowed business owners in any industry to charge the customer for the credit card, processing fee. And ultimately, it was kind of hidden, and the only organizations that used it for about the first 5 or 6 years was the government, because I
Yeah.
think they failed to tell businesses throughout the country. Then gas stations came on board, multifamily housing came on board, professional services. I mean, it's in restaurants, it's in bars, it's in so many industries, and most consumers don't even know that. It's not to say we're keeping it from them, but coming out of COVID, guests, customers, patrons, whatever you want to call them, are all expecting differences in business, and understand when owners need to do some things, make some decisions that will change their model a little bit, so that they can stay alive, so that they can actually increase their profitability or sustain.
Right.
And that's the interesting part about it. So people get that. They're starting to understand that.
So,
Yeah, I just want to mention one other thing.
sure.
COVID has given an opportunity for hotel owners to change the way things are done, right? That's why even some of the bigger brands are looking at the breakfast option, right? Like, what do we do, right? And, Fairfield is now experimenting with vending breakfast rather than serving breakfast. So very similarly, right? I think there's going to be a change in the industry in all categories, right? And this is a category that, again, would benefit them on the bottom line. And the switch over, right, to a new way of doing things, because we are in a whole new world. I mean, masks are now like a handkerchief. You just carry one in your pocket all the time. Right?
Absolutely.
So
You said something earlier, Mukesh, I want to touch on. It's easy to implement. This isn't a brand thing. You don't have to redo your lobby and update your sheets and your bedding and your window coverings. And, oh, by the way, the new color of the year is blue or green. And I believe me, I get it. I was there for a while. But as you said, it's so easy to implement Merchanier into your system. And Bob, tell the listeners, what's the worst thing that could happen if you try it for 90 days and for whatever reason you don't like it, there's too many guests saying this, or you just don't see the savings you thought? What are their options?
Well, first off, you will see the savings. There's really no option there.
It is.
It's going to start rolling the first day. But the reality, let's say for a minute, okay, my guests are complaining. I don't see that happening, but let's say that happens. We shake hands and we move on. And because the owner will just have their merchant banker in a dormant stage, which costs like $25 a month, they can go back to the old way of doing business. But we have never lost a client. So the possibility of that happening is pretty much slim and none. Because once you start saving this kind of money, it's how do you stop all of a sudden? You just can't do it.
Right. And people are going to get frustrated with any sort of upcharges. They may see it in any other industry, and the risk is what I'm looking for. There really isn't one. And Mukesh, question for you. When you heard about Merchanier, who and why were the reasons you decided you wanted to participate?
FDH, Bob, we met in Phoenix at a golf tournament, and a whole golf tournament incidentally, right? And I hadn't seen Bob in years. And so you bump into each other, you start talking, and it's like, what are you doing now? And then we have a discussion on Merchanier. And I don't think it took more than 60 seconds for me to say, okay, I like this, right? The engagement between the two took a little bit longer than 60 seconds, right, Bob? It was like, yeah, I'm interested. Just like, seriously, you are interested? Well, how about if we do this and engage like this? And that's the engagement, right? There is no doubt in my mind that there is going to be a change in the way we do business. And this is one of the solutions. And in COVID, they're sympathetic. In
Right.
COVID, people are sympathetic to
Right.
business changes, right?
Yeah.
And again, I think the timing is right. I kind of chuckle when Bob says that the government took advantage of it first, of course. But now it's opportunity for
Why not?
the hotel space.
The hotels are going to not take advantage of their guests, but they're going to look at every way they can generate revenue within the lines. And what I want to emphasize here is not only is this in the lines, hotel owners and developers, management companies, if you're listening, this is right there for you to take. And if Hilton and Marriott and Hyatt and IHG do not get on board, then you need to ask them, what are you waiting for? Because we're coming. As Bob likes to say, at some point, the big brands are going to fall as well and say, please do this because we empathetically understand and it's time for you to make as much money as you possibly can. And they will too work with the owners and make sure that the guests understand it. But imagine if brands come out and say, we're behind this. Guests checking in are going to know, wait, do I pay for cash and save money? Or do I pay like I normally do wherever I go by my credit card and no one's going to notice it? So,
And those guests are going to say, and here's my credit card, right? So in
absolutely.
terms of the brands, I've talked to many of the brands already, and the one thing I ask them is, when is the last time you actually provided good news to your franchisees? And I stop and I wait, and there's really no answer. Coming up with a new brand or developing a new brand is not necessarily good news to owner operators. That means there's probably going to be a competitor across the street from their hotel. I know I was in the business for a long time
Yeah.
with IHG. So the reality is this is an opportunity for the brands to give some good news and support something that you can point to and is in many, many other industries in Canada, Mexico, all over Europe. This is normal.
Right.
Of course, the United States is last, but it is time not only for this to flourish in the United States, but in every industry, and certainly the hospitality industry, restaurants, hotels, events, theaters. I mean, throughout what we would refer to as the hospitality business, it's time.
Yeah. When you think of the brands, and if you were sitting in a big brand chair way up high, why would this intimidate you as a brand, and what would you be afraid of? And again, I don't know that there's an answer. I'm just asking, why wouldn't the brands be in favor of their franchisees saving money? And by the way, the brands, they don't have to do anything. Is that correct?
Pretty much. I mean, pretty much that's the case. I mean, they unfortunately, these big brands, and again, I was with two actually, and they kind of behave a little bit like the government. There are committees, there are, executive councils, there are brand,
Sure.
it goes on and on. And, if the brands would, and the problem is something like this doesn't fall in one person's purview.
Mm-mm.
It's usually many people. Everybody has to have input, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it's very hard to find the right person that will be, brave enough to make a decision like this.
Yeah,
And the
someone
truth
needs.
is, you're not really being brave. You're being supportive.
Right. And we need a champion. Mukesh, before you give us your closing remarks, address that same brand question, if you would. If you had a lot of relationships with the people at high up spots within brands, what would their fear be?
Yeah.
Throughout my 45 years of being in industry and working, one of the things that I always profess is always put yourself in the other guy's shoes. You know, when you
Mhm.
said that, okay, you're the guy on top, you're sitting in your chair and you're thinking, right? It's a question of priority, right? I think member benefit now, franchisee benefit, hotelier benefit is one of the top things that they look at on a regular basis. But what's his priority? His stock
Sure.
price. And to make his stock price go up, what does he do, right? Get me more brands, you know, make sure everybody's on time in terms of payment, the cash flow, et cetera, et cetera. The Wall Street issues, right?
Right.
Then it comes down to these details, you know, to Bob's point, right? Finding the guy that will champion this thing and just make it happen. My flip side is we're partners. You know, the brand is not my enemy, right?
Right.
You know, the Wyndham guys are not my enemy. Okay, we are partners. You guys help me get more rooms rented by your logo, by your systems, all that kind of stuff, and we're partners. This is another component of that partnership. It's like, hey, honey, look, I just found this way for us to save a shitload of money, right? We need to implement this, right? And you know, if and when they recognize it, it should be a no-brainer, right? Because the question I would ask is, why wouldn't you?
Right.
You know,
Right.
Great
you're
question.
CEO of this, why wouldn't you do this, right? And maybe because you're too busy with your other focuses, well, then get the guy who could make the decision and tell him to go do this. It's as simple as that, right? But again, we're there. We're going to fight an uphill battle, and at some point, the playing field will level out, and then it becomes downhill, just like everything else. Right?
Amen. Yeah, it's just like life. Mukesh, you're full of wisdom. You're icon in the hospitality industry. Appreciate you not only joining us today, but joining the team. Looking forward to working with you, and it's great to see you again, Bob. As always, my friend, enjoy Grass Lake Lodge, where you're living for a few days here. I know it's a beautiful thing for people to rent, and maybe someday you'll have your own Grass Lake Lodge podcast. Who knows?
Oh, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I probably not.
You've got enough going on. For a retired man, you sure don't stay retired very long. Great to see you again. And again, Mukesh, thanks for making some time for us today. You guys all go out and have a great weekend.
Enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.